Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, listener. I am here with my new best friend, Shari, and I'm so excited. And I know I use that word every time, but every person brings me joy and every person brings me a message. And I truly am honored that she is here to spend time with us. She has been where we are. She has been in the thick of things. She has been to the point of what or who am I? And how do I find me? And she's gone through this journey and she's created a methodology that she can share with you and I to help us build that firm foundation so we can be who we are in all things. So, Shari, welcome. The information about you is in the show notes. Everything we talk about, all the links will be right there in the show notes for our listeners. So, Shari, teach us how to do that self-discovery and to find that process to get us out of the what I call the robot non-thinking feeling. I don't know who I am feeling. I just do what I was told.
Oh, and there's so many of us that are in that frame of mind, right? Thank you. And before we get started, thank you, Laura, for having me. I'm looking forward to all of this. So you're right. Was in it. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I enjoyed. So my journey has been it has been a long one. Peeling the layers of, who I was to who I am now. And, one of those layers that led me to this discovery of these pillars that I like to call was me looking back at my journey and just seeing the threads. So the one of the big threads of our self development journey, I think, is awareness. And we all have to start there, right? We become aware that we're not happy. We become aware that we are not being our truest self and we're not, right? So, and then of course, in everything that we do, awareness is key. So my my system actually starts with awareness. We have to get into who that's clarity also, but it's figuring out who we are, where we want to go, and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, that's part of clarity, but it's also being awareness that we're not who we are and what we want to be. So, and then it goes into the decisions of, okay, now what do we want to do? And, or, you know, I'm not saying this really well right now.
Well, let
So
me
I
see
am
if I can
apologizing to
paraphrase.
your,
No, you're good. No
to our friend.
apologies are allowed. We just know some days we just get tongue-tied and our brain isn't processing, and it's okay. Let me see if I can summarize it as our first step as we start going into this process of discovering who we are is to start to become aware. And that would be focus. Oh, I feel good. What is it that's been happening around me right now when I feel good? What is it? Ooh, I feel bad. What's happening around me right now that's making or triggering this not so good feeling? And so as we start being conscious of our feelings instead of stuffing them, instead of hiding them, we start becoming conscious. We start being aware. And once you can be aware, then you can start figuring out that next step, I think you said, is decision. How can I change from, oh, something's not making me feel good. I must not be in my authentic self. How can I change right now to change that and become aware of the growing of that new peaceful feeling? So is that kind of what you're talking about?
Definitely. I mean, that is part of it. Definitely a big part of it. But then we also go into, you know, finding out where we're getting ourselves stuck at too, right? So, okay, I'm in this pattern or starting to notice our patterns
Mm-hmm.
because that opens up to a whole nother layer, right? So when we can actually notice our patterns on what we're doing, what we're not doing, how we're thinking, and how we're thinking of ourselves and that kind of stuff, then that gives us the opening to start changing it all.
I like it. Yeah, because that pattern is really important. And when you start reflecting on what's been going on, you can start recognizing those patterns. But until you take that moment to be aware, it you will keep moving on and never know. So it's pause. Take a
Yeah.
pause.
Take pause. Take pause. And that's what I tell my clients, and that's what I do with myself. I sit there and okay, I'm not doing this. Stop, take a breath. Why am I not doing this? Or why am I doing this? Or what was this trigger that triggered me into this response? Did I like that response? No. Okay. So what actually triggered it? And then going inward and figuring out, okay, this, this played a role. Or sometimes it's like, okay, it's there, but I can't figure it out. And that happens a lot too, right? So then we either go and find somebody that can help us. I've been doing that a lot lately because my triggers are getting more and more complicated. What happens when you get through more layers and more layers? But so you can either go and get some help, or you can just stay aware of it, and then eventually more things will actually come along so you can actually go, oh, that's it right there, right? And then, then of course we have to go more inwards and, you know, take a breath, see what it's doing in our body, all that kind of stuff, and and then work with it so we can actually release it and change it. Because then we have to make our decisions on whether we do actually want to change it, because we might not want to change it. And if we don't want to change it, well, that is also our choice, right? It's our responsibility when we take responsibility for our choices and our doing and all that kind of stuff. So if we don't want to change it, that's okay too, because we might not be ready to change it right at that point,
Oh yeah, I have several
right?
triggers that I'm not ready to let go of yet. I'm working on others. And it's like, I shouldn't say not ready. I just have a lot. And it's like, I don't want to take the time right now because this one is more complicated. And I think about the light switches in your home, if they're up, your lights are on. If it's down, your lights off. But if you have a three-way one, it might be up, it might be down. You don't know. And so the ones that I haven't fixed yet, I don't know if they're up or down. They're just not working like I want them to.
Right. Right. Yeah. And a perfect analogy, because then sometimes we can actually want to work on it a little bit. And then sometimes we just want to settle back into our little habit and just be okay with that. But I mean, it is our choice whether we want to actually be okay with it or not, and whether we want to change it or not. Right. So that's all part of the awareness. And
I like that. I like being aware and just paying attention, really paying attention to what it is. Like, wow, something just triggered me. And you're in a crowd and you don't know what it is. But if you can take that moment to realize it's been triggered,
Mhm.
and you have the power right then and there to turn it off, switch that right back to the off position.
Yeah.
But I know that it's not always that easy. So now that we are aware and we know if we're triggered or not, what do we do?
Well, a lot of what I do and what I tell my clients to do is like I said, take a pause, go, okay, I'm triggered. Now, this, and it changes with everybody because everybody is slightly different on how they actually deal with it right then and there. Some people are great and they can just stop and they can go, okay, that's there. I'm going to remember this and I'm going to work with it later. Some people need to actually, make a voice a voice memo to themselves going, okay, this is what if they can, like, if they're in a great big huge room or something, they're probably not going to want to do that. I mean, they could scurry off to the bathroom or, that kind of thing, and just, do a voicemail going, this is what I'm doing. This is how it made me feel, and then come back to it later. But the other thing is, of course, taking some breaths. You were doing that earlier before we started, taking breaths, going into the heart space, and, really just letting that trigger be okay, that you're triggered, or that realization of whatever it was. It doesn't have to be a trigger, it can be just a realization of what it was, and just accept it for the what it is, because we're all getting these lessons all the time, right? And they're coming at us for a reason, and it's, to upgrade who we are and everything else, because of course the universe does want us to be who we are, or whoever, however you want to say that, whether God or universe or however, right? But it's being okay in here as well, so then just go, like I said, go inward, go down to your heart, just yourself, drop your awareness into your heart and go, okay, it is okay to be triggered, right? It is okay to have this habit. I can explore it later or whatever, or I can just release it right now. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy, or we can make it more difficult.
You know, um, Changing patterns is always a little bit uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
You have to stay conscious. You have to stay aware and choose moment after moment of what direction you're going. And awareness is key, is really dialing into that, because without it, you're not going anywhere. If you're
Yep.
not aware what road you're on, you're not going to get to your destination. Like, GPS is like killing me because it makes it too easy to find everything, but I still get on the wrong road. I still get doing things that I could change. And so, really, that pause, and then every time you have that trigger, learning a new response. And I'm really good at, right, verbally in front of people saying, stop, that is not what I meant. That is not, this is, I I am going to say this different because I want to be more empowering. And because give myself that permission to go ahead and look like a fool. But to dial it back right then, I feel like I avoid going too far down the road. And it has helped me to do that permission. I give myself permission to look silly and say, stop. No apologies here. You know, it's okay to, you're not doing anything wrong. You're existing and you're living your life, and it's beautiful life, and quit apologizing for it. And so
Mm.
it's just little things that it's okay to be
Mhm.
who I am. And if someone else was triggered and you didn't do it intentionally, it's not your fault. Yeah, I have a lot of external things I would like to blame on my life, but it's not theirs. It's not it,
Yeah.
mine. And
Yeah.
so I think that you've got a really good point about really knowing and learning who you are through that awareness and through that pause and through that redirection of, okay, this is what I choose. because we do have choice.
And that actually leads really nicely into my second one, which is responsibility. And responsibility actually it is very large and very encompassing. Two. I'm just going to leave it at that.
And I give my permission to forget words when I want to, or when it is like I'll make up a new one.
Exactly. There you go. So when we actually can take responsibility for, like you were mentioning, blame, that is, not taking responsibility for ourselves or our thoughts or that kind of stuff. We actually shuffle it on to somebody else, right? So that is where we go with that, because responsibility is taking that on ourselves. Like I said, with our choices, with how our life is responding. Jack Canfield, in one of his books, The Principles of Success, I love the way he always says it. And it's, you have your event, you have your response, and then you have the outcome. So it's your response that actually fuels that outcome, right? There's a lot of external stuff that's not in our control that happens to us, but it's our thoughts and how we actually deal with an event that actually gets that outcome. But then it goes even further into it, where it's, especially with awareness, when we have awareness, it's like, okay, where are these? Okay, we have this. So now where am I with it? Right. So taking responsibility for that awareness as well.
And, responsibility is really key here, because we cannot always blame everything in our lives on someone else. It was an experience that included another person. And if they were to say a story of, tell what happened at that moment, their story would be different. But it's how we respond to that.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get a little bit more information on this responsibility and how you got through, because it's a tough change to all of a sudden not be the victim, but to be the victor. So I want to take a quick break, get a word from our sponsor. When we come back, I want to see, Shari, what did you do to help be responsible? So we'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Lara Jane Coaching. You know you're ready to silence your inner bully voice. Let Lara Jane support you with coaching. To schedule an introduction call, go to larajanelayton.com.
All right, Shari, let's talk about responsibility.
Okay. Well,
I don't want anything to be my fault. I'm a perfectionist and I want everything to go perfectly. And when it doesn't, but this is our whole life. This is not just, did the party go off well? This is a response to everything and anything that comes to us. And to take responsibility when somebody, trying to think of something drastic that could happen, someone threw a rock through my window. Okay. That's drastic. And I want to be a victim. But can I turn that around? And I'm talking, this is physically, but this happens all the time emotionally. Someone will throw a rock through your window and you will feel the pain and you will get to clean up. But where does our responsibility come in on that?
okay. So when I first started, I had to have a few layers actually, shed to get to the whole, okay, now I understand. And actually, I just actually had another one just a little while ago. But when I first started my journey, it was like, I'm responsible. What do you mean take responsibility? I'm responsible. When I make a mistake, I admit it and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, that's great. But it didn't go further. So then my next layer was, so I was blaming my husband for not helping me, for not being supportive, for not, all this kind of stuff. And I finally got it that it was like, okay, I want an office. It's not on him to actually get me one. It's like, that's on me, right? So I was blaming him for a lot of stuff that wasn't was in my control to actually do, that it was my responsibility to do. Then we have the responsibility of, like I said, of our choices. Do I do this? Do I not? If I don't do it, am I okay with that? Right? Taking the responsibility that that is my choice not to do it or to do it, however, and the responsibility of what actually happens when. And then recently, like I said, I just had another layer, and it's on acceptance. And I never actually thought acceptance as being part of responsibility. But when you can accept the way things are, because you've all heard, I'm sure you and, our friend has actually heard the whole saying of, it is what is meant to be. And, that kind of stuff or whatever. So if everything is the way it is supposed to be, then acceptance is part of responsibility. Okay, I accept that this is the way it's supposed to be. So then the responsibility is there. So that's where I've actually gone now with, okay, I'm have this situation. Like you said, rock went through my window. I'm feeling very triggered. I'm feeling very angry. I'm feeling whatever it is that you're feeling, because everybody's going to feel different on how they actually get it. And you go, okay, well, how bad is this on a scale? You can scale it 1 to 10, however. And then you go, okay. And that's where the acceptance comes in. Okay, that's where it is. Good. Okay, so now what's my next step on this? And it's like, maybe it's, okay, how is this, if you go through the whole points of, is this catastrophic? Well, no. Okay, perfect. How is it making me feel? Well, it's making me feel like it's catastrophic, right? and just acknowledging that, okay, scale 1 to 10, how does that make you feel? What's your emotions that are coming up and all that kind of stuff, and just accepting those as well, right? So I think being responsible, and you're right, it is not easy. And like I said, it took me a long time to actually get here. But when I actually work with people, I get them to basically do exactly what I was saying. How is this on a scale of 1 to 10? How can you change it? How does that make you feel when you think about changing it and that kind of stuff? And, maybe let's reword how you actually thought of it or think of it, right? Because there's always another side to something, and you can always reword how you think, which will actually change how your outcome is and how you feel about it. Did that make sense at all?
Yeah, I think it works well. When we take responsibility, we're kind of teeter-tottering through that. I'm responsible. I need to be aware. Now let's go through, what are these things that happened? What was my response? Was it blown out of proportion? I get to choose. I get to choose if it matters or not. I could say, whoop-de-doo, I don't have to clean that window. New window was on the way. Thank you, guy. I can take it as a blessing and take it and look at it as for all the good it is. I can take that same situation and go, oh, that is never happening to me again. I am going to put a wall up. They can throw all the rocks they want and nothing is ever coming through. But you've also now taken away your view. So it's really that self-reflection. What is the response I want? Do I want to board up my thing and never come out again? Because now I'm just doing like a really extreme, drastic response to something that's fixable and didn't need to be removed. How much do you enjoy the view? How much do you enjoy washing windows? Go through all of the things and go, okay, for me, I choose to be thankful that it didn't hurt anybody. Thankful that it only affected me and that I get to respond. And maybe that person was just angry at the world. And I was the first rock and the first window that showed up on their path. And I'm the one that got it. And it had nothing to do with me, which is almost 100% of the time the reason. Someone has something else going on in their life. They're frustrated, they're angry, and you're the one that got lashed out at.
Yeah.
And when we respond with are you okay? Can I help you? Is there anything you can do? Instead of, I'm never going to be your friend again. And you totally change the tone. And all of a sudden now you're supporting others in their journey too.
Yeah.
So take responsibility, choose your response. It can be any of the ones. It's okay. If you need to be boarded up for a while because it hurts so bad, it's okay.
Got it. Yeah.
The boards can come down later. So we do get to choose our response and be responsible. So next time you look out the window and go, oh, I can't see because now it's a wall, that was your choice. Your response was to board it up. You can put a window back in. You can see. You can have a view. You can go outside. These are your choices. You're responsible and your responses to the things that happen. And they're not good or bad. It just
No.
is. It's just
Yeah.
what our next step is.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, like I said, with acceptance too. It's like, it is just the way it is, right? And we've got so much baggage that we need to layer off, take the layers off. I loved somebody's analogy one time when I was talking to them about coats. So we have all these coats that need to actually come off, but being okay with where you are, being accepting it and that kind of stuff. But of course, then you want to find the clarity on where you actually want to go, because that'll help you actually shed those coats, right? And you were talking about that too, even finding, deciding on what you want to do and making those decisions is finding the clarity of what you want to do. So there's the clarity part. So
I love the clarity.
they all
There's so much to do. It's impossible. No, it's not impossible.
no,
And
because you just
the deeper the wounds, the longer it takes to clean it up.
it can, it depends. I mean, the way I see mine and with the way I treat, and I mean, I've worked with other people who have been on their journey even longer. I've worked with this one lady who's been on a journey a lot longer than I have even, and she still got layers. She's like, oh, here I am, I'm working on this one again, because each layer is covered with another layer, because, well, our social, I mean, I've heard this on your show before, the social conditioning, the past. I don't know if your friend likes goes into past lives or not, but I mean, there's past lives, so there's genetics, there's all this stuff, right, that we get inundated with, and that we need to shed to actually get to that inner core of us, right? I mean, we get little snippets, not just snippets, but I mean, we are who we are right at this moment. But if we want to get right down to our very core, truest self, each layer that we work on gets us a little closer.
Yes. And it is kind of sometimes, I call them the pop quiz, when all of a sudden you thought you had mastered the response on something, and it's never going to stop coming at you. But every time it comes at you, it gives you the choice to pass or fail your test. Like, am I ready? Have I been doing my inner work? Am I going to still respond like I did? It's like I can take a shower today and I'm all fixed. And I go through the day, and guess what? I need a shower again. You don't just do this work once because life still happens. Every day, there's things that come at us. Every day, there are things that we deal with. And it's just going through that shower process again. And this is that self-reflection. Let me choose how I'm going to behave and choose the responsibility. This is what happened today. I didn't do that the way I would like to show up next time, and plan it. If you can think through, like I blew up, I yelled, I screamed. I do not want to respond like that ever again. Next time this happens, what do I need to do? And maybe it's as being authentic and true to yourself as I need a moment to process what just happened. And I will come back to you on that. Give yourself the grace to walk away, ground yourself into that true self that you are working on being, and then come back. And so I think everything that you've talked about is so in line with just the natural part of life, but putting words to it. We don't realize sometimes that we do certain things until someone finally puts a word to it. Like, oh, that's what I was doing. I was taking responsibility. I can do this. And so creating that plan, that action plan for next time so that you are in control of your response.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. These five, what I call the five pillars, definitely do intertwine every kind of decision and thought that we actually have. So but you can actually use them, like I said, consciously use them. So, like I said, you get triggered and then you can go, okay, so it's triggering me, getting clarity on how it's triggering you or whatever. How, like I said, we're just using triggers for now. So, we're getting clarity on how it triggered. Then we're going to take responsibility or acceptance on how, what it was. And then we're probably going to have to do some work for ourselves, right? On what it is, which actually goes into the mindset because a lot of our stuff is our mind, right? It's in our conscious brain that is stopping us. It's all our habits and all that kind of stuff. It's in our so then we work with that. And then of course, well, there's action. And then action, well, I mean, we can't move forward without action, right? Or inact. I mean, even taking what some people would consider inaction if they didn't want to actually do something to change it, that's still an action. So it's not an inaction, it's an action. So that is something that people actually need to hear too, is because just because you're not doing something doesn't mean you're not taking an action. And sometimes that is what you need, is to just to step back and be okay with where you're at and be okay with what you've done. And that is an action all unto itself.
That is a beautiful note to end on. Be okay. It's okay.
Mhm.
So what if you were crazy bitchy mode yesterday? It's okay. Today's today. Be the person you choose to be. And if it's back in bitchy mode and that's your choice, life goes on. It's okay. So, do you have any last minute words of wisdom or how to get a hold of you or anything that you would like to share with our friend?
Last bit of wisdom. You said it just now, just beautifully. I don't know if I can really say it any better than you. Be yourself. You are who you are. You are beautiful just the way you are. And, when you can accept that, and not even when you can accept that, just accept that as a truth. And if you need help with that, you can look me up on my website. You can get a hold of Laura. You can get a hold of any number of people, I'm sure, and just get that help that you need, because everybody needs help seeing some things, maybe reframing it, right? So that you can actually go, oh, okay, and actually believe it, because that's hard, because we're always so hard on ourselves. So actually believing that we are okay, sometimes we just need that other person just to help us believe it.
It is kind of tough to be feeling really grumpy and crazy and go, this is okay.
Yeah.
Because we really don't want to feel like that. But what joy. How would you know how beautiful peace and joy is without those grumpy days? And so take it as, this is reminding me how I can choose to have life and how I can live. And I will enjoy this grumpiness for a moment and then let it go.
Yeah.
So all the information about Shari, her website link, it's in the show notes. Go ahead and check her out right there. Shari, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Shari and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals. We are here for entertainment. People have found something to work for us. We want to share it with you to possibly help shorten that path to getting out of the rut and getting out of the grungy. I'm sure the next episode's going to have some great stuff too, so stay tuned for it.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Laura Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.